Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're very welcome to our review show, and we're looking back at the Senior Championship quarterfinals that took place over the weekend. We now know the semi-final pairings. It's Crossmaglen taking on Silverbridge and Clonerne against Ballymacnabb, and we'll look forward to them in the coming weeks. But first up, we're going to look back at the quarterfinals over the weekend. And Peter, on last week's preview show, we done it in chronological order, so we done Friday, Saturday, and the two Sunday games. I think we're going to do it in the same order. I think maybe the two most interesting results came on Friday and on Saturday night. Starting with the Friday game, it was Clonerne against Mohray. Going into this game, there was a feeling maybe that if there was going to be an upset over the weekend, it was Clonerne who could cause it. A team that have been on the rise and have been coming this last couple of years, or certainly we've been waiting for this great Clonerne team, this great youthful Clonerne team to come through. They've finally taken a big scalp, and I described it as a coming of age win. It was a huge win for them, taking on Mohray, the county champions, and defeating them in the end.
Yeah, Sean, for sure. I thought it was probably the coming of age result for Clonerne that they've been threatening now for a long period of time, probably the last sort of 4 or 5 seasons. Threatening to sort of take out a real big gun, and that's what they've done on Friday night. And I suppose it was probably in dramatic enough circumstances as well. That's these things never really come easily. They always seem to happen on the back of a real dogfight. And to be fair, I think they had to dig in to finally wrestle it away from Mohray. Like, I think typical Mohray, they really went out on the shield, and they took it right to the wire. But look, full credit to Clonerne. That's been building for a while now, as we're all aware of, and it probably goes to show just the real value of the strong ethic and underage that they have, that continued process of churning out high volumes of really capable players year on year, you'd have to say. And from their point of view now, you would have to say, Sean, that now that I think that's a kind of a monkey off their back to a degree, that they finally sort of announced themselves on the big stage, and now you can see with all the good work that they've been doing and that constant supply line coming through, the Clonerne are probably going to be now in that top 3, top 4 bracket to stay for quite a long time.
And as you said, Peter, that great youth coming through. We've seen the likes of obviously TK, Connor Turbo, and Barry McCambridge, all county footballers at this stage. And I suppose if you look at the programme, there's not many teams that have 50 players named. And I know like Ryan Owens and Ryan Meehan have been named, and their injury concern, they're out for the year with injury. And there's maybe everybody is probably carrying a few boys. But 50 players in a squad is incredible, Peter. I think they're the only senior team certainly that has that.
Yeah, and again, that's testament to the buy-in. Probably, Tommy Coleman and James Byrne have been there now a couple of seasons, and Tommy's a big personality, and he's been around the block, and he is doing a really good job there. And Tommy not be too phased by what's probably coming around the corner. He know now that he probably has the team where he really wants them, and they've got that youth, got the exuberance, their age profile, bar maybe a couple of players like maybe Daggy Leedham and Conor Bell, Ryan Henderson, who are giving them a great spine and that real level of experience. But outside of that, it's all young, fit bodies with no little ability. And the thing about Clonerne is technically they're right on. Their unforced error count is low. They handle the ball really well. Nice mixture between that sort of direct kicking game, but also they're probably more renowned for a really slick running game. And I've been really impressed with that any time I've seen them this year. So, they've a lot going right. Their forward line, there's a good depth of forward there. They interchange well. So there's players that can play equally well as the last man inside, or they can play as like a forward. There's just a lot of adaptability and a lot of players that can interchange. And I suppose probably what they've built up together as a group through coming through and then batches from underage, there's a huge level of understanding. A lot of their players would have played for St. Ronan's on good St. Ronan's Macrory Cup teams that the Clonard traditionally would always make up 6 or 7 of the starting team. So when you have that level of understanding coming through year on year, it builds up great chemistry, and they're starting to really reap the benefits of that now.
And Mahari, Peter, they led for a lot of the game. Brian Fox got a goal within the first 5 minutes. Clonard did get level a couple of times, but Mahari would just fit to get their noses in front of Stephen Falker, kicked a massive point to put them ahead at one stage. But maybe the legs just went a wee bit in the last 10 minutes on the fresher substitutes for Clonard, and the likes of Jack Conlon coming in, Rory McDonald, all kicking points, and that was really the difference between the teams. But pay huge respect to Mahari. They broke through in 2016 to win a county championship, their first ever, and repeated the feat then last year. Obviously beating Cross in the final for the first time since 1982.
Yeah, look, I've no doubt that just knowing how that group of players would have played themselves, Sean, that they would be taking that defeat extremely badly, on the basis that they put a lot in. They're an extremely professional setup, and they have been now for a while. And there's probably a core group of players there that have been together for a long time. Talk about that, understand that the groups of Clonard players would have, but probably none more reflected than what would be in the nucleus of that Mahari team. So they've been good champions, there's no doubt about it. They come back after 2016, beating the final in 2017, and then came good again last year after a couple of near misses in the previous couple of seasons, but knocked out in semi-finals. And there's no doubt when Finn Moe went in that he sort of re-energised the thing, and his level of, I suppose, astuteness and his attention to detail seemed to be really well received by that group, and they really lapped it up, and delivered the championship last year very deservedly so, put on a real exhibition of football in the final. And they were probably rightly annoyed that there was no Ulster club last year to give it a rattle, because it would have been second time round for them, and I'm sure they would have liked to put into practice some of the lessons they learned from their first venture into it. So that was just the year that it was, and it was unfortunate for them, but they've been really, really good champions, and like any good champion, they went down fighting on Friday night.
Definitely they went out on their shield, as the saying goes. Saturday's action, Peter, was crazy, I suppose, to sum up, would be the best word to describe it. 7 goals in a senior championship game. You can take it that, yeah, that's class and real attractive football and forward play. I'm not sure any defender watching the game would have been thinking that road. Silverbridge went in till a 1-4 till no score lead, and Cullyhanna by I think the 20-minute mark or something were 3-4 to 1-4 ahead. Like, just a crazy game. Silverbridge pushed up on the Cullyhanna kickouts and got great turnovers off that in the first couple of minutes. Cullyhanna found their feet again, and 2 goals from Phelim Savage and Phelim McArdle turned the game on its head. Of course, Silverbridge fought back then. They got back into the game. 2 Sean Rock goals in the second half helped them push away. They were the better team, certainly in the last quarter. They were the team that went and pushed on to win the game. I think they scored 1-3 in the last quarter to Cullyhanna's 1 point. So Silverbridge, they deserved to get through, but it was certainly a crazy game, and I'm not sure if there's many games with 7 goals in them.
No, definitely not. Good for Sean for the paying spectator in, and those that are watching on TV as well. It was seemed to be momentum swings just every sort of 10 or 15 minutes in the game, and you'd have to say, firstly, all credit to Cullyhanna who didn't allow the initial sort of ropey start to completely deter them, and to come back sort of roaring into the game the way that they did, would deserve immense credit. 2 teams that were playing in 1B this year, and from having seen both of them, it's I think what it probably shows overall is that the standard between maybe the top couple of teams in 1A and the rest of the teams probably isn't, take the top 2 or 3 sides out of it, standard between the rest of 1A and 1B, there's probably not a whole lot in it. And you've got a nice representation in the semi-finals of 2 teams from 1B actually in that. Goals are absolutely key. And look, you talk about Sean Rock there. Sean Rock, seen him on numerous occasions, come up against him on numerous occasions. He's a boy that's taken a wee bit of watching. He's only young, he's maybe 20, 21 years of age. But he's come good. He's a really good left foot on, and he's definitely a player that you'd be looking forward to seeing come up against Crossmaglen, because that's going to be the acid test for him.
And while we'll preview that game in a couple of weeks' time, you touched on it, Peter, having 1B teams in the semi-final. Silverbridge and Cullyhanna coming into this game knew that this was such a huge opportunity for them to reach a semi-final. Silverbridge have got there now. They've got there on merit. Like, is that motivation, whatever happens in that semi-final, maybe for the other 1B teams to go next year? Well, look what Silverbridge have done.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I mean, look, to be fair to Silverbridge, Sean, I don't want to preempt anything here, but if Crossmaglen happened to beat them in the semi-final, that would be the third year in a row that Silverbridge's championship aspirations would be ended by Crossmaglen. So, you can dress it up whatever you want, but Silverbridge, I'm sure they could make a case for themselves as saying, well, hold on, if we draw anybody else in this championship or Crossmaglen, we tend to win. So it just goes to show with the open draw, with the straight knockout format, any team's only a couple of sort of reasonably winnable games away from making a real impact in the competition. And you can't underestimate what that does for a club and a team like Silverbridge. Obviously, they're a big animal. They're a big club set right in South Armagh, where football is everything, and fantastic facilities, great infrastructure, and now that they're appearing in a senior championship semi-final against their next door neighbours, like, they're not going to be caught wanting for desire to win this game. I would probably need to be more convincing that they have the all-round ability to win the game. But I think, looking at the makeup of their team, it's a young team, it's an athletic team, and it's certainly, whatever happens in a couple of weeks' time, it's going to do them absolutely no harm for their longer-term ambition. Yeah,
they definitely deserve to be there. And again, I suppose Peter Nugent top scored for Cullyhanna, and that's good. As we keep saying on the show, it's great to see him back and firing at all cylinders, and we'll hopefully see him playing National League football in the orange and white next year. Sunday's action then, Peter, was Ballymacnabb against Pearse Oaks, and maybe a wee bit like Silverbridge, Ballymacnabb started off brilliantly, 1-3 to a point up. Suddenly it was, I think it was 1-4-7. Was the Oaks got back on level terms, and again Ballymacnabb pushed on in the second half, went 7 points up with 10 minutes left, and just took the foot off the gas, and the Oaks kept working hard, and got back to within a point. What was your overall assessment of that game, Peter? What did you think? Ballymacnabb deserving winners, but just lucky to get through in the end, I suppose.
Yeah, Sean, there's no doubt about it. Like, I thought the Nab were the better team over the course of the 60 plus minutes. I thought in the first half, probably Pearse Oaks had a lot over their keeper, Ryan Kearney, who he really kept the game alive, I suppose, on a number of different occasions. Now, whether it was an unbelievable stop from him on a number of occasions, or it was what you may probably call slack finishing from some of the Nab forwards, is probably up for debate. But I think Nab would be disappointed they didn't make more of those chances, and probably that's where they're maybe missing Gavin McFarland on the end of them, because he doesn't tend to miss too many of those opportunities when they're presented, and maybe that's something that might come back to hurt the Nab before it's all over. But certainly the typical of the Nab, they moved really well going forward. A lot of enterprise between Rory and Jack Rugen. Kieran Hughes probably had one of his quieter days, but we know what he's capable of. So there's I think for the Nab it's a good win in that they're through, and I think there's a lot of hype come behind Clonerne, and you'll not want to hear this, but the Nab are probably slipping in a wee bit under the radar, because their opponents are going to be taking a lot of the plaudits from the last round, and that just might suit your boys a wee bit more than you would want to let on.
Yeah, I don't think we stand much of a chance, Peter, to be honest. It's all Clonern's to lose. Well, we're talking about the Nab forwards. We'll have to touch on Ryan Waters' goal. There was loads of goals scored over the weekend. I have no doubt this was the best one, certainly the best one I seen. He tells me he meant it. I'm not sure how you feel about it. Getting a second look at it from the TV cameras, I think he did mean it, Peter, and what a goal.
I'm going to go with you, Sean. I think after a finish like that, you're not going to start putting the lad down and telling him he didn't mean it. You know, it was some finish, and I'd say it'll probably, if there was a highlight reel at the end of the season's batch of Challenger games, it would comfortably make it. You know, but Grant Waters has been a player that's been coming now for the knob for a while. Like, you know, I suppose he's probably, maybe it's unfair to say him, but maybe he's a bit of a lesser light just in that clucks of forwards at the minute. But he'll certainly be keen to, you know, keep his place in the team and to keep pressing on, because whilst other teams will obviously have to pay the respect to the sort of the more illustrious season names, it'll certainly give him more of an opportunity to have that kind of effect going forward.
And what do you make of the, I'm not sure collapse is the right word to say, but I suppose we'll have to give Oaks credit, we'll call it their comeback. Coming from 7 points down, like the game was dead with 10 minutes left, 7 points down. They fought back, got a couple of frees, got the goal at the end, and it was really a nervy last minute or so for the Knob.
That's how it goes, Sean. You know, we've all been there where, you know, the results seemed like it was certain, and then it just takes a game. Game can turn on one instance, and in this game it was the goal coming down the straight, and you know that's a natural enough reaction. It gives the opposition all the impetus to go in search of more scores, and it's probably just a natural enough occurrence of momentum shift. But look, the Knob had enough work done earlier in the game, and they were able to see it out. And an extremely experienced side, you know, now at this stage. And we were just remarking on Sunday after the game just about the amount of probably different times now over the last 10 years that they've managed to make their way into the last two. So it's becoming now just a thing that the Knob do to find a way to win these games. And you know, it's better to be, Simon says, it's better to be inside the tent spitting out than outside the tent spitting in, you know, so you're still there and you still have a chance.
Yeah, still got a chance, and as we said, that's the semi-final. They'll be taking on Clonerne in 2 weeks' time. Peter, the last game, Crossmaglen against Clevey, and I suppose I felt this was maybe going to be the game of the week, given how the sides got on last year and how competitive it was and how close it was. And I suppose this was a bit similar in the fact that Cross had built up a decent lead, and you know, during the second half, they allowed Clevey back into it. I don't think I ever got the sense that even when Clevey got level, that they can push on and win this. Crossmaglen obviously were the ones that pushed on and outscored Clevey 1-5 to a point in the last 10 or 15 minutes. The red cards obviously massive. It was just after, I think, the first red card that Clevey got level, and Crossmaglen's hard enough to beat with 15 men, let alone 14 and 13. What did you feel the game? Did you feel Clevey were ever in with a chance to, they're really going to push on and win it here? Or was it always going to be Crossmaglen getting the win?
Well, look, to break down probably the Crossmaglen performance, first of all, Sean, it was a clinical opening first sort of 12-13 minutes, and I mean all their sort of bigger players were firing. They went with a really, really aggressive press on the Clevey kickouts, which we'll come to in a wee second. But that gave them a real foothold in the game, and still great to see, you know, that pure abandonment that they play with. You know, there was 2 Cross fullbacks against 2 Clevey inside forwards and a goalkeeper, and the rest of the players were highly engaged, you know, up the field, leaving a big swathe of space in behind. Now, to be fair, if they didn't take the kick out, you usually see maybe like Aaron Kieran or Stephen Morris maybe sort of falling with the play and dropping into the hole, is trying and cut it out. But I mean, that's just a common sense thing to do, I suppose. They got great joy in that opening period on squeezing the kickouts. Cian McConville, his tackling's absolutely ferocious. You know, it's worth any young forward going to watch him and his application in the game in terms of his hunger to win the ball back, and that's before you even look at at his attributes, when he's actually going to receive the ball and when he's actually on the ball. So they've certainly got a really, he's developing into a really good leader for them up at the focal end of the field. I'd say that Cross were ruthless in the first 10 minutes and they're ruthless in the last 10 minutes, and in between it was probably a bit of a muchness for them, to be honest. I thought in that middle period of the game, Kalibi came back into the game nearly in spite of themselves. Sean, that's what I felt about it. They continued to persist with a short kick-out game, which to my mind brought a lot of pressure on themselves. It brought a lot of pressure on their defenders carrying the ball out of the fence, and invited on a lot of hard cross pressure. I mean, they seem to have good options out of the field to go longer with. Cathal Boylan, the young guy Callum O'Hara, and James Donnelly was out there too, as well as Kieran O'Hanlon. So it's not like they didn't have options further out the field. They also probably were at times stuck for a real robust ball winner in their inside forward line. Now that changed when Keelan McConville came in, and obviously we can only assume that he wasn't deemed fit enough to start or to play the entire game, because he's a huge player for them, especially whenever he's stationed at full forward. So that was probably to their detriment, with a great battle between Stoddart and Oisin King. And I suppose the same, Keelan Dillon put a really, really good shift in there for Cross as well. And Paul Hughes, I think Paul Hughes was picking up McNamee for a lot of the time, and they had a good battle. And then Morgan obviously went in on McConnell near the end, and that was another good battle. But that was probably a feature of the game, Sean, was the good sort of man-to-man battles that were going on, especially between the Kalibi forwards and the Cross defenders, and you'd have to say probably the Cross defence shaded it. So it was definitely intriguing. I would say, to answer your question, probably Kalibi got their sentence off, obviously, at really a time when they couldn't afford it. They just don't work so hard to get back in the game. It was nearly feeling a wee bit like deja vu in relation to the game last year, but look, they were never going to pull it off once they went down the man, especially in the second man. It was never going to be a thing for them,
And that middle section, Peter, that you're talking about for Cross, obviously the big press on the kick out is impressive and very noticeable. That's something they're trying to do. They really make that middle third a war zone, don't they? And it's sort of, we spoke about sometimes their defence can be very open on their space back there, and Aaron Kiernan usually is the one drifting back, but he's not going back as a set sweeper. He will drift back as a +1 when needed. But that huge pressure they put on in the middle of the field, nearly, Clevey couldn't get the ball in quickly to make use of that space inside.
Well, look, Sean, there's a very clear blueprint, inside the Cross dressing room, I'm sure, and that's, nobody's too big to do, the hard yards. And I suppose if I was picking out, I was picking Ryan O'Neill out for the work that he put in off the ball. I mean, that's the standard that any player anywhere else in this county should be looking at and thinking, well, if he's willing to go and do that and put the yards in and put the tackles in, and not only put the tackles in, but put them in cleanly. He doesn't make a tackle for the sake of just dragging someone down. He gets up alongside them, waits for them to play the ball, and then he just simply takes it off them. He was excellent. It probably wasn't his best day in terms of, hitting the highlight scores or playing big 80, 90 yard raking diagonals in Oisin or anything like that, but it was a very, very clinical performance from him, and that every time he got involved, he was making an important play in the game. So you'd Aaron Kiernan as well, who probably looked as well as he has looked in quite a while in a Cross jersey. I thought he was everywhere, setting up attacks, covering back, giving the extra cover. And there's one play near the end where I think there's maybe only a point into the stage, but he takes a ball down the sideline, and the Kalibi defender comes out to him, and he just pops it over his head with a hand pass and runs around him, and takes a bounce, and he gathers it again. That never leaves you. That's just the sort of capabilities he has as a player, and it was good to see him back somewhere approaching, well, the best that he can be now, whatever it is, 37 or 38 years of age.
There's no doubt they've still a lot of quality. Maybe they're not as dominant as they used to be, but there's still so much quality spread throughout that team. And I know on the intermediate podcast a couple of weeks ago, Peter, I asked you coming into the semi-finals, were Sarsfield still the team to beat? Crossmaglen are obviously still the team to beat here. They're Mahary and Collihana, the only two teams to beat them in the championship in recent years. I hope I have that right. I think I do have that right. They're both gone. Ballynav have obviously been close in recent years. Clonard and Silverbridge, as you say, Silverbridge have met them on a couple of occasions now and haven't have come up short. Clonard and Cross haven't met in a couple of years in the championship, 5 or 6 years. There's no doubt Crossmaglen are the team to beat for the remainder of this championship.
Yeah, well, like the remaining teams in the championship are going to like what I'm going to say now, because I'm effectively going to say that they have it all to do. Since Cross played the Clans, Sean, that day they didn't look good. They looked a wee bit unsure of themselves, and you know, you would have had a lot of doubts about them. But all I can say is that they're markedly improved, and that's. Well, how often have we said it? If you want to beat them on the first day, because they only get better as the thing goes on. And you know, obviously, I understand they were beating the final in a final last year for the first time in a long time, but I think I've seen enough of them on Sunday, and I've seen their reaction after the game. You know, I very rarely have seen that kind of emotion from a Cross team after winning a quarter final in Armagh. I think their heads are well and truly in the game this year, and yeah, I'd be making them clear and outright favourites.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I think the form Rian O'Neill's in, and as you said, Peter, he only scored, and I'm going to say only scored 1-1 on Sunday, but his work rate and his tackling and his working back was incredible. And he's the main difference. I feel that if a team can maybe try to tie him down, and I'm not sure how anybody's going to do it, any of their main teams can do it, they might have a chance. But yeah, I agree with you. Crossmaglen are definitely the favourites for the remainder of the championship. That's all we have for you today, folks. Make sure to vote for your player of the week, as our team of the week, sponsored by PlayerFit, is going to be released at 8 o'clock this evening. And whoever you vote for and whoever you win to get player of the week will pick up a PlayerFit player of the week jersey once again, and we'll catch up with the last 4 winners over the last 4 weeks with jerseys as well. So Peter, thanks very much for coming on, and we look forward to the Intermediate Championship with a podcast in the next few days as well.
Thanks, Sean. Pleasure.